We are live. Sorry I messed up the time. I think I threw a lot of people off. I had this stream set for uh, tomorrow accidentally and realized my mistake much too late. So at least we got 5 likes and we've got someone in the chat already. Generally, there's a lot of people in the chat already by the time I get here. So I apologize for having made that mistake. So let's see, a couple things. It was awesome to be at the Clint's Reptile Room grand opening. So hopefully some of you were able to see that. It was so fantastic. Had so much fun. I posted a few little bits from Instagram, but of course, Clint's Reptiles channel has covered it for their patrons. They released live streams of what we were doing. It was really fun. So I hope some of you were able to participate. I see Mugshot is here, JH from Philly. Wendy Hickson, Sean Meister, and Champ Bada are all here. I should mention I'm here with my co-host today, Ruby. Ruby, the Montana red-sided garter. She is interested in brumation already. She's starting to go off food, or at least take a lot less food, and she's being a lot more secretive, and those are clear signs of brumation for her. That's what she does every year. She usually starts to act as if she wants to brumate sometimes in September, or even sometimes in August a little bit. She doesn't fully begin to brumate, of course, then. But I think one day when I have my own large brumation refrigeration unit, I will probably start brumating this species a little bit earlier, maybe in September, October, rather than December when I do it now, because I have to depend partially on the climate to allow me to do it here. And I think it would be better if I could start in October, then maybe waking her up in December or something like that. Anyway, who else is here? I see that we have Becca Nichols and Frank the Tank, Therapod Hunter, Joseph Tevere, and Green Jedi Monkey, and Chris's Critters have also joined in. Excellent. Glad to see you here. Yeah, I usually wake them up in February, but it does kind of seem like it hasn't been all that long. And this, because they come from, fairly northern latitudes, and I believe fairly in their natural habitat, they probably wake up sometime around, well, at least like permanently leave the brumation chambers for the year, probably somewhere around May, and probably begin brumation in September, October. So it's really not very long for them. See that Random T is here, as well as the Spider Boss and Gather for Magic. Excellent. Glad to see you all here. And Gather for Magic, thank you. Glad you appreciate the content. So, yes, please do hit your like button on the way in. I wanted to just give you a little bit of a peek into what we did at the Clint's Reptiles grand opening. It was so fun. On the first day, on Friday morning, came in, and there was a breakfast. We got to do some meeting of the other content creators and so on. We had some target practice with Nerf guns to help us prepare for activities that came later. And then we had an activity. It was basically a great race activity. We had to race all around the town in cars, trying to find clues that related to geo coordinates that led us to the next clue, which was pretty fun. And whichever team, we were in teams, and whichever team won was going to have a bigger advantage in the next event. And that's kind of the theme. That's how it started. And I'll probably mess some timing up, or get some things that I leave out. But anyway, we had that, and then let's see, after that we had lunch. After that activity, we'd already done the target. After lunch, we went back to the Clint's Reptile Room, and I believe that was the day. I should look at my schedule and make sure I'm not leaving anything out. But whoa, oh, sorry, that's not what I'm meaning to do. I'm not meaning to add sound there. But anyway, we did a lot of cool things. We met a lot of people. We did do meet and greets that day. Um, and the next day we had, then we had dinner, of course. And then uh, dinner before the, I think we had dinner before we had the meet and greet. Anyway, we did some really cool uh, activities in the morning. We had a trivia game, and our team did really well in the trivia game. And then we had to, then we had our Nerf battle, an epic Nerf battle, um, which was interesting. And then after the Nerf battle, we went back for the ribbon cutting ceremony. We also had a movie, no, not a movie, a video, a content making activity. We all made content about a reptile that we were able to choose based on how we did in the some of the pre-qualifying activities, like in the Great Race, and we got to choose in the order of which we would do that. And so I got to choose fairly close to the like fourth or fifth or something, and I got to choose the snapping turtle, which was fun. And so if you haven't seen my snapping turtle short, you should check that out. That was really fun to make. So I kind of messed up the order, but there we go. It was really fun. So if you've checked out Instagram for some of the content creators I got to meet, it was really fun to meet a lot of content creators. A few of them I had met before. Some of them I had met only online. Some I had met in person. Of course, I had met Clint and Leisha before. I had met a lot of volunteers from the reptile room before. Uh, but as far as people that I hadn't met before, but I had met online to some extent. For example, Bill Strand from the Chameleon Academy was one of those who I'd communicated with online a little bit. The Canadian reptile girl, we had communicated back and forth a little bit online. Got to meet her in person. Um, Mariah from Reptifiles, I had met in person before at an expo. Richard Bilbo, I had met before at an expo. I think I had met Garrett Hartle very briefly at an expo where I got to hang out with Garrett a lot more. There was paleoanalysis there. Tyler Ruggie and Maddie were there. Um, the Dan the Turtle Man and Cataleo were there. I'm gonna. There were green room pythons was there. Um, I don't. It's just hard to remember them all without looking at a list, but it was super fun. We had Brian Cusco was there. I actually have a post. I have a photo that I can make sure that I get everybody. I'm just going to check real quick if you don't mind. I don't want to leave anybody out. There's a photo. So I mentioned Dan the Turtleman, Catalia, Tyler Ruggie, Paleoanalysis, Maddie, Bill Strand, Green Room Pythons, All Canadian Reptile Gold, Dave Kaufman, Mariah from Reptiles, Garrett Hartle, Brian Cusco, and Richard Bilbo. I think that's everybody. Hopefully I didn't skip someone when I was talking. But anyway, super cool. Sorry, I'm just looking down. It's a little bit weird. So, yep, this is Ruby. Ruby's looking a little darker than normal, maybe. If I put her closer up, you can see the red markings that earn her the name red-sided. She's looking, she varies in how much red she's showing, but she's a beauty. Had a fun experience this week. I was at the canyon with my wife on Sunday, and she was the one to spot a Hogna carolinensis, a Carolina wolf spider, a very large one. This was a male, so its abdomen was quite small, but it was, in terms of leg span for what I usually see around here, it was about, its leg span was about the same size. So that was really fun. She spotted it. She actually got close to it to view it, which was fantastic that she wasn't, showing too much fear of spiders. And unfortunately, once it kind of started moving, that spooked her a little bit and she moved further away. But I was proud of her for getting close to the snake and the spider and kind of checking it out. It always makes me happy when she takes steps closer to, appreciating spiders more like I do. And she's always had some appreciation for spiders. She's not one of those people who just, mindlessly squishes a spider once in the house. She's not like that, but she doesn't have the appreciation for spiders that I do, so it was nice to see her get a little bit further. Are you going to boop me? Is that what you're doing? You're just going to climb up in my glasses. Oh, okay. See, Mr. and Mrs. Morelia are here. SDN Beats, welcome. I would show you the zebras. That's going to be impractical today just because of where I'm set up for filming. Once in a while, I will film down here in the basement where I'm not close to any of my isopods, so it would take me a long time to go get to them and take some down here, and the way the camera's set up isn't really favorable for that. So when I film down here, I usually just take a snake with me, something like that. But definitely check out future live streams. I will be happy to show some zebras, including my yellow zebras, and so on. So theropod hunter, I'm tempted with an hourglass spider, which is available in my area currently. I believe they're related to trapdoor spiders. Interesting. Razor clam, hello. Well, I hope you can still hear through the microphone if Ruby's hanging out like this. She doesn't, sometimes she'll do this and just hang out for quite a while. She'll be my snake tie. All right, yep. So SDM Beats, we'll do that in the future. Next week, I'm going to do an interview. I'm interviewing Jessica from the PDX Insectarium, or the Portland Insectarium. We're going to get to learn about the Insectarium and hopefully see some of her creatures that she has there. She has quite a fantastic assortment of creatures in the Insectarium. So I hope you're able to join us to talk to her about that. Oh, awesome. Tarantula Collective. Thanks for the super chat. And our podcast together comes out this Saturday. Fantastic. It was really fun to talk with you when we recorded. I guess that was it last Monday when we did that? I think it was. That was so fun. So I'm really glad that we had a chance to chat again, and I hope everybody enjoys it. So everyone, please check that out on Saturday. This Saturday, check out the Tarantula Collective. Instead of putting the podcasts on the Exotic Pet Collective, which is what Richard used to do, YouTube has changed the way it works, and so the Tarantula Collective YouTube channel is where you will find our podcast. So please check it out. Oh yeah, that's a good question, Richard. How are you feeling after that sting? We did talk about that a bit. I'm hoping at this point you don't have any symptoms left. The spider boss. Have you ever considered keeping vinegaroons with blue death fanning beetles? I'm attempting it now. So far, it's been going well. I haven't. I haven't tried that. I know a lot of people do that with desert hairy scorpions, but I haven't tried it. Glad it's going well though. That's good to know. All right, the sting's all good. Just finished editing the video. It will be out Tuesday. Okay, cool. We'll have to check that out too. It's always good to get a detailed report of how that goes, and I'm glad it could have been worse than it was, but it sounds like it was pretty bad, and I'm glad that the worst is over. So everybody, make sure to check that out for sure. So someone was asking me. It was Eric. Eric, one of the patrons, was asking me about why I couldn't ship milkbacks and dairy cows anymore. And I just wanted to mention, if you haven't seen the post you haven't seen my video and the post on Instagram from American Isopodologist, made a video recently discussing this, why Porcellio laevis dairy cow and Porcellio laevis milkback are no longer Porcellio laevis. We call them Porcellio AFF period laevis, meaning they have an affinity for laevis. They are similar to laevis, but they're not considered laevis anymore. That being the case, I can't ship them unless my permits change. And as far as I know, because they're not known to be established in the US by documented academic sources, then I can't ship them unless they change the way permitting happens. So, Tarantula Collective, I condensed 72 hours into 20 minutes. That must have been a rough 3 days, just saying. That sounds like. Hmm. But so in a way, it's good that it was only 20 minutes because it will experience and learn from it vicariously. But at least it won't take that long. But I'm sorry you had to go through that. That's horrible. Um, let's see. So your video is coming out noon Eastern time. Fantastic. Yes, they're a pod hunter, kind of like Porcelio pseudo-laevis. Yeah, yeah. So they're not laevis anymore. Hopefully they will. I don't know. Eventually, maybe they can be something we can ship. But as far as I know, that probably won't happen anytime soon. Yeah, isn't that line amazing on this snake? Look at that. The dorsal stripe and the lateral lines are pretty solid. And she's very chill. You know, I hand fed her from the time she was, well, tongue fed her from the time she was a little baby. And garter snakes in general can get pretty friendly, of course. And red-sided garters, meaning parietalis, not infernalis, are known for being quite docile. Infernalis, which is the same species but different subspecies, is known as the California red-sided garter snake. Absolutely gorgeous and consistently has more color in most localities than the like this locality, the Montana red-sided, although, some of the parietalis look really nice and have a lot of red on them. And it might even be possible to mistake them for California red-sided garters, where some have little or no red, where the California red-sided garters, almost all of the localities have a lot of red. So interesting. So razor clam, I'd like to ask about mold, fungus, and ice pod cultures. I've heard that in some cases it's not only unproblematic but beneficial. Your thoughts? Depends on the fungus and the type of fungus that's growing in there. For example, there are mycelia, basically mushroom, the underground portion of mushrooms that grows, not the fruiting bodies that we see and think of as mushrooms, but the part that's under the substrate that grows through the substrate. That part is really the heart of the mushroom in a sense, and mushroom mycelia can be really beneficial for isopods. There are isopods, there are molds that can be very fuzzy, kind of, they can grow on the surface in a very sort of a network of very thin threads that can be dangerous to isopods. But in general, for the substrate to have some natural fungal, bacterial, microbial uh, action in it, we actually want a lot of that in the substrate. And part of that is some fungal growth. So in that sense, that's very beneficial in the sense of a lot of thread-like growth that isopods can potentially get stuck in, or rampant growth that can potentially suck so much oxygen out and produce so much CO2 in the isopod bin that it can interfere with respiration. Those can be problematic. So hopefully that helps. Welcome, young lad. Very, very calm and very beautiful reds. I wish sometimes that I were not partially colorblind because I can see those reds, but I'm pretty confident I can't see them as well as you can. Yep, she's my snakeless. Josh, hello, welcome. And Dave M. I am doing so much better. I am doing a lot better. I was in pretty rough shape a couple of weeks ago. Fortunately, in time for the Clint's Reptile Room grand opening, I felt much better. In fact, the week before that, I had the Reptile Expo, so I was feeling better even then. So it must have been like 3 weeks or so that well, it was kind of off and on for a while there. So actually, I don't think I felt great the day after the expo, but I might have just been exhausted. A fun guy. Yes, Richard. She's actually entirely blue. Frank, why didn't you tell me earlier? So razor clam, there was a large bloom of fungus, but over the past month or so, it's become far more balanced. That's another thing that I should point out. I think that in many times, substrate, if you start out with just sort of an microbiologically empty substrate, a lot of times you'll get a fungal bloom at the beginning, and that is kind of a natural process, and it tends to calm down after a while. So that's a good point. If you introduce some healthy microbes from like substrate from a previous enclosure, which you don't want to do if it has a different type of isopod in it, but if it has the same isopods that you're trying to keep, for example, then say I want to move rubber duckies from one enclosure to a fresh enclosure, you really shouldn't start out with a microbiologically bare enclosure. You should have some leaf litter that you've been maturing in a bucket of water, for example, or you could move half the substrate out from the old bin, or if it's a smaller bin you're upgrading, you put all the substrate in from the older bin and then fill the other half with new substrate. Things like that can help you avoid the worst of the acclimation period. So theropod hunter, if there's a yellow and brown morphomaculatum, does it have a name? So like they have yellow stripes and then they have like a chocolate zebra but with yellow stripes. I'm not aware if that has a name or not. It may or may not. Good question. Alan John, excellent. Good to see you. Been a while. Yeah. I'm glad that YouTube did start suggesting it. It's good that you're back. This autumn whiteout from you are doing well. We've got good numbers of those, so thank you. So Spider Boss, what does one do about mold in pink toe tarantula enclosures? There has been this weird blue and white mold on the side of the log. If I take the log out, we'll break the web. Good question. I don't really have a lot of advice for tarantula keepers just because I'm such a newbie in tarantula keeping, and I feel like I couldn't really say a whole lot without, you know, I would feel bad about saying much about it just because I haven't enough experience to do that. If I keep tarantulas for the next 5 years and I do a good job, and I have a lot of tarantulas during that time, and I've grown a lot to adulthood and that kind of thing, then I would feel like I could say something. But maybe Richard could help us. Oh, look, Richard just gave a suggestion to put the springtails in there. That's a good idea. That makes a lot of sense. So thank you, Richard, for chiming in with your tarantula expertise. So Rocky, should I worry about worms in my bins? I use worm castings in my substrate. They're becoming annoying because they're so prolific in their activity slowly buries the hides into the substrate. What kind of bins? Your isopod bins? I would say worms compete with isopods to an extent. Fresh worm castings can have some nutrients the isopods can use, but generally worms will process the substrate faster than isopods will, and that just renders the substrate less nutrient rich over time to the isopods. Maybe initially, as the worms process the substrate, there will be more nutrients available, but over time they will just keep processing until there's not much left in there that isopods can use. So I would recommend against keeping worms in there. Armadillo maculatum banoffee sounds like a great morph name. Like banana and coffee together. Is that how that works? All right. Yeah, thanks, Richard, for chiming in on that. I did put springtails in with my one tarantula, my Adolocothellia diamantinensis. Did not put any isopods there, just springtail. Seems to be working fine. I just found out that my Brazilian blue dwarf beauty molted over the weekend, looking good, and probably ready to feed in another few days. And I'm not sure if it's male or female. I tried to get the molt out so that I could soak it in soapy water and do the close scrutiny of the molt to see. But it looks like when I pulled out the molt, I didn't notice that the important bits of the molt remained in the enclosure, and I can't see them. They probably just fell into a place I can't get to. It seems like I got all the rest of the molt. I got all the legs. I got the carapace. Got a whole bunch of pieces, but the important bits for determining the sex of the tarantula were not with it, so they must be in the enclosure somewhere. So that's kind of frustrating. So I'll have to see how it goes next time. Or maybe I can try to get a shot from below. And that's not as dependable, I know, but if I can get a good one now that it's a little bit older. It's very blue, which is fantastic. That time of year. So Richard has had about 30 molts over the past 2 weeks. Wow, that's awesome. It's a lot of tarantulas. But I know you have a lot, and someday I'm going to come out and see your collection. That would be so fantastic. Random T, would isopods eat a tarantula molt? I would expect so, yeah. And some isopods would eat a freshly molted tarantula too, if they could get to it. So yeah, but I would expect so. There's a lot of moisture in a fresh molt. Isopods tend to be very, very attracted to freshly molted things. They don't tend to have any compunctions about it. They'll eat a freshly molted thing in many cases, whether or not it's been harmed at all. So um, it's not really that's the main issue that people have with keeping isopods with other invertebrates is that if it's freshly molted, it's pretty likely to become a snack. And there are other factors that um, come into that, like how many isopods there are, how hungry they are, how much moisture they've had, that kind of thing, what species it is. Some tarantulas molt on they make a molting platform that's covered in urticating hairs that could provide some protection potentially from isopods, that kind of thing. But I would say in general, yeah, they would most likely eat a tarantula molt just because they eat so many other molts. Checking here, making sure we didn't get any Patreon questions that I forgot to answer. Okay, and I'm working on answering Eric's questions. We're doing that through email. So I guess we're covered there. There are no other questions that we need to be worried about covering. So, what else is going on in the near future that I wanted to share with you? I mentioned the next live stream with Jessica from Portland Insectarium. Going to be on the IsoBuddies channel soon. We're going to do a Velvedant episode, so stay tuned for that. We've got some other episodes in the works too in the future, but that one's coming up quite soon in the next couple of weeks. We talked about the podcast coming out with Richard on Saturday at noon Eastern time, so we've covered that. Make sure you catch that for sure. Trying to think if there's anything else. And thank you, Frank the Tank, for putting the IsoBuddies channel up there. And I'm going to make sure to share Richard's video when it comes out too. I'll post it on my community tab and things like that to make sure that I'm sure many of you already know Richard's Tarantula Collective channel, but those new subscribers or people who haven't seen his channel yet, I'll make sure that they get a chance to do that. And there is a link that Frank the Tank just put up to Tarantula Collective as well. Thank you. Look how chill she is. She's just totally relaxing. So today's stream might go a little shorter. I kind of messed up the timing and it caused confusion for a lot of people. So I apologize for that. A lot of people didn't know it was coming. Yeah, thank you, Kevin. Ruby is looking pretty good. She is doing well. I actually had to kind of wipe her down before I came this because she got all dirty on right behind her head. She had a big patch of mud or something on her, perhaps snake poop. Not sure, but I took some paper towels and moistened the area and wiped her down a bit, so she's doing better now, looking better. But Kevin, yeah, let me know. I sent you a message on Instagram. I've been a little slow the last few days because things have been crazy, but I did send you a message back asking about the wait list. So make sure to check that out, and we'll get you on there. And not a problem, and it's totally fine if you haven't replied yet. I'm not too worried about it. We have time, but Just wanted to make sure you knew that I had replied to you. Anthony Dixon, isopod recommendations for Argentina tegu enclosure. Let's see, an Argentine tegu enclosure. I might put something like Porcellio laevis in there, or Porcellio dilatatus, the giant canyons, because both of them are pretty good. Well, both of them are good at burrowing down into the substrate. Both of them are capable of eating a fair bit. I would say Porcellio laevis is probably a better choice just because they're going to breed a lot more, and they're just more prolific than the giant canyons. The giant canyons can build up a good population, but they take longer. So probably something like Porcellio laevis, or milkbacks or dairy cows that used to be considered laevis and are no longer considered laevis. That could work too. So Frank the Tank, I've seen some very pale zebras before, very, very faded, to the point where you can almost not see the stripes. I've seen a few like that. But in my opinion, it doesn't look quite as good because you lose a lot of the contrast. Now, if you could switch the stripes so the stripes were really dark and the rest of the body was really light, now that would be something. But that's just my opinion. Ooh, good luck, Kevin, with the black rat snake. Yeah, it sounds like you're going to need some good fortune there. So yeah, good luck. Oh, theropod hunter. I'm not sure if you had mentioned that or not. Your Cubaris marina in with your Centrobolus species Mozambique. So have you had? This kind of makes sense to me that because Kyle at Roach Crossing has kept Centrobolus species or Centrobolus species together with Porcellio scaber with success for a long time. He did mention recently that he had had them together for years, but recently one of them outcompeted the other. I don't remember. Pretty sure it was the isopods that outcompeted the millipedes, but um, can't remember for sure. But he said he had them together for years, and then finally uh, it stopped working very well. But it had worked together for years, so I think it's possible to do. Just a little tricky. Yeah, the champagne zebras are pretty faded. That's true. And were you talking about something even more faded than that, Frank the Tank? Ah, thanks for putting the Roach Crossing link up there. Have you had a lot of successful molts with the millipedes, or breeding the millipedes with the isopods in there? Cubaris marina are not known for being quite as voracious, maybe, as the Porcellio scaber, but yeah, I could see it working. Hopefully, it continues to be a successful experiment for you. I love to hear specific cases like this, and especially time frames. Like I've had this species of isopod and this species of millipede, like you did, together for this long. We need more of that. And then how it has been going. And as you mentioned, yep, it's been going well. It's been going well for 5 months. So that's great. And if you can say the same thing at 1 year, 2 years, 3 years, 5 years, then we have some solid data that it is possible. And then we can get some more data, like how do you keep them? How often do you change the substrate? How much substrate do you use? What kinds of substrate? What are the substrate ingredients? What do they have access to in terms of diet? All these kinds of things can really help us find the formulas for success. At least people, at the very least, people can attempt to replicate what you have done and attempt to replicate your success. And then we'll have more data on it, one way or the other, which is fantastic. That's how this works. The more data we can share on this kind of situation, the more uh, knowledge we have, the more success everybody has. So it's win-win-win all around. Okay, so no babies yet, but you're not sure if they're mature. That makes sense. Coro Works, thank you for the reminder about the like. We have 26 people in here, 25 likes that I can see, and I think some of those likes were from people who are already gone. So there are probably a few people who haven't liked yet. So thank you for that reminder, Coro Works. Oh, I can see they're starting to pile up again. Fantastic. It's funny how calm Ruby is right before she brumates. She's got probably 1 to 2 more feeding attempts before I stop feeding the adult garters altogether. I currently have, I think, 13 garters in the house. One's on breeding loan from Don's Garter Snakes, and all of them are going into brumation except for two. We've got Tiny, which is our young red-sided surprise clutch from last October, who still needs to put on more size. So I'm going to leave her out of brumation most likely. Part of the reason I'm going to do that though is not just because she's old enough, I could put her into brumation, but she doesn't seem to act like she wants to brumate yet, and the adults typically do. And also my flame, my little flame from T, from the Odd Noir, those two are enclosure mates, and so it's partly because I don't want Ember, the little flame, to be alone. And they're both eating well and everything, not too concerned about that. So they will be the ones I'll be working with. They both could use some work in terms of taming down. They've been in a top opening enclosure, which is not great for garters in general, and is not great for taming garters especially. And so I would like to, when the other snakes go into brumation, I'm going to put in one of the other enclosures that's not top opening. It's a front opening enclosure, which will give them more space, but it will also give them a chance to hopefully calm down a little bit more and become really tame, grow out a little bit more. And then when I wake everybody up, I can put them in with the other female enclosure. So we just have all the females together, all the males together, and then I can use another enclosure for pairing. And I might have to have one more enclosure or two set up as well, but I have some bins I can do that for temporarily. When I'm just putting garters together for pairing, I just put them in bins for a few weeks until they pair, and then I can put them in the enclosures where they go. So I'm doing 3 pairings this season, this upcoming season. Ruby to an unrelated gold form red-sided, and then my melanistics, my 2 male melanistics with my 2 female melanistics. Crystal's Pets and Plants have joined in. Awesome. Oh, Kimberly Kitty's here. Hello, Kimberly. Saw something strange today. Let's see. You saw one of your Sackins velvet ants eating a dead cricket. Wow. Ate the entire abdomen. That is interesting. I don't think I've ever seen one of my velvet ants eat an entire dead insect. I'm trying to think if I've even seen them munching on dead insects at all. I've seen them eat some weird stuff a little bit, like nibble on some weird stuff. I don't think I've ever seen that. That is very interesting. My cousin, who's a velvet ant researcher, has said that he has placed wasp pupae or larvae, I don't remember which one, in with velvet ants to see if he could get them to oviposit on these pupae or larvae, because they were the species or similar to the species that they would normally oviposit on. And he said instead of ovipositing, they did chew into the exoskeleton of these larvae or pupae to drink the hemolymph. So they did do that, but that's the closest I've ever heard. So very interesting observation there. Thanks for sharing that. That gives me an idea. Maybe I need to. Well, I do throw pre-killed crickets in with my velvet ants. I haven't seen them chew on them, but the reason why I do is because I have them with the beetles, and I'm wondering if the beetles are just out competing them. They're getting to the crickets before the velvet ants do. Huh. Very interesting. So theropod hunter. Oh, you're going to grow some black poplar trees to get some poplar moth. That's a cool idea. So Kevin, you just got 2 male radix. For those of you who don't know, radix are a species of garter snake. They're the plains garter snake. I have a pair of radix too. They're pretty cool. So he got them from T, the Odd Noir. Still at the point where I get all worked up anytime I touch the bin. Yeah, it's lovely that garter snakes tame out usually really well, but hopefully that will happen soon with those. As soon as, do you have them in top opening too, like I have with my little ones? Lester, hello. Thank you for joining Patreon. Really appreciate that. And I'm glad you love the channel. Fantastic. Great to see you here. Ooh, I gotta tell you, uh, some of you may have seen the video of the enclosure, the spider haul I got from cobwebcastle.com. Elliot sent that out, and I was looking for an orb weaver. We're gonna have a killing frost in possibly tonight, very soon, and within the next week for sure. We're gonna have our killing frost hit, which is pretty normal. Anywhere from mid to late October is usually when it hits. I really wanted to get a spider in there, and I knew where a cat face spider was, and I knew it was going to die really soon because of the killing frost. And so I collected the cat face spider and put it in there. It's a huge cat face spider, the biggest one I've ever seen. So far, it's only built some irregular looking web. It hasn't done the orb web, and I don't know if that's because it's just close to the end of its lifespan or there's some other reason why that's the case. I'm going to keep my eye on it, and hopefully it'll build a cool web, and hopefully it'll survive longer than it would have in the wild, but we'll see. It's a very, very huge spider. Critter Keeper for the moment. Yep, that's what I've got my little ones into. Top opening Critter Keeper, and I do like that the way they built the lids now are a little less disturbing for the snakes than they used to be, and also they clamp down more securely, which is good. But the snakes are small enough that I just put them in a Critter Keeper, and I try to give them varied things to interact with. I'll put cardboard tubes in there, and I'll put egg crate, and I'll put crumpled paper, different things in addition to their hides and water dish and stuff like that, so that they have a chance to interact with different things. So Sean, you're getting the Killing Frost this Monday. Yeah, we'll be really close. We'll be getting it about the same time. So Kimberly, yeah, that's a good idea. I should at least make a short about the cat face spider, or put it in a live stream soon, something, so that you can all check it out. I hope she builds web. I'm sure it's a female. It's way too big not to be a female, and it may be gravid. That's not unlikely, but its timing would be a little off because I don't think it would have had time to lay an egg case before the freeze. But we'll see. But I will try to get some video footage of it for sure. What I really want to do is get in the future. I think the cat face spider might be a little big for it. I want to get a smaller one, like one of the spiny back orb weavers or something. Can't get those here, but maybe I can get someone to ship me one. And Yotaro is here. Welcome. Oh, young lad. So you saw one just the other day. Cool. Yeah. Sometime, someday, I hope to live in a place where we don't have uh, the winters that are as rough as they are here. Not that we live in the place with the roughest winters, but we do get hard frosts and so on. Oh, sorry. That is an alarm that I left last week because I had to end my live stream early. And today, I don't necessarily have to end as early as that. Where did that go? What time is it? It's 6:13. There it is. I'm going to take that out so I'm not interrupted every week, because the way the phone works, I have to set it to recur every week or I can't do it at all. Can't have a recurring one at all. Kimberly says, if I see a spiny back orb weaver, I'll let you know. I see them with some regularity. Awesome. That would be cool. Because they seem like they're about the right size. They stay quite a bit smaller. I really liked those star-bellied orb weavers we saw when we were in Arizona with Sky Island Adventures. We saw two of them, didn't we, when we were there? And those were super cool. And I know that the spiny backs are kind of like those, but just a little bit more spiny. Um, yeah, and I had never seen those in my life, so those were fantastic. And I've never seen a spiny back in real life either, but I've seen pictures of them and whatnot. So I think they would be cool because they just don't get gigantic, and they'd be a good fit. I feel like this cat-faced spider, its web when it had, in the wild, its web was pretty big. Not a whole lot bigger though lately, because I knew where this was and I would come back and visit it here and there when it was in a spot in the canyon, and I would go see it and see how it was doing. And the only reason I collected it when I did is because I figured, oh, it's going to be dead in a week or two if I don't. And so there's not much of a problem doing that. Anyway, its web used to be quite a bit bigger, but then the last time I went back, it wasn't a whole lot bigger than the enclosure. So I thought, no, that could work. So Frank the Tank, I want to get some of those really alien looking harvestmen. Oh, you mean like the really bizarre looking ones? I feel like there are some amazingly alien ones out there. And some of them are really colorful. They have some amazingly colorful ones from Arizona, from Texas. Having a hard time remembering the name of the species that's out in Texas that's so brightly colored, but they look amazing. Oh, Crystal, you should look up the cat face spider, or someone find a link. If you find a link to a good photo of a cat face spider, somebody throw it up there. I guess Crystal, you could do the same thing because you're a mod too. But see, oh yeah, and my I guess they're Say's harvestmen, so they're closely related to the ornate harvestmen. The Say's harvestmen do fluoresce to some degree, which is pretty cool. Not as much as some other creatures, not like a scorpion or anything, but some of their joints seem to do that. So young lad, you've sent some spiny back orb weavers too. Cool. Okay, Frank the Tank found a good image of a cat face spider, so you can all check it out if you haven't seen them. Some of them look amazingly like a cat, kind of crazy. Others, not so much. This one that I found is so big, I feel like the face is kind of distorted. I want to say the cat face is distorted to the point you can't really. It doesn't look that much like a cat face spider. I just noticed that Ruby removed the um, foam portion from the microphone. I'm trying to put it back on, so sorry about that. Oh, Kimberly found best beetles. Fantastic. I think that would be a really interesting keep. For those of you who don't know, best beetles are the beetle with the most elaborate form of auditory communication known to beetles, to my understanding at least, and one of the most complex forms of communication, apparently, among the insects, probably surpassed by that among bees, but they have a pretty complex form of communication. So that is fantastic. That would be fun if you tried to see if you could record the sounds and catalog them or something like that. That'd be cool, or at least even just hear them. What would that be like? That'd be pretty fantastic, I think. So Theropod Hunter on Facebook, you saw a photo of a cerulean blue scorpion, which you're hoping wasn't photoshopped or AI. Hmm. I've never seen one myself, but that's the thing these days. It wouldn't be very hard for someone to make a very realistic looking scorpion with AI or Photoshop, either one, and it could be hard to verify, wouldn't it? So young lad, which one are you talking about? Are you talking about the harvestman? Oh, the spider, the spider. Okay, not the harvestman. Yeah, Kimberly Kitty's mentioning the 17 different sounds that the best beetles make that are apparently communicative. They use the sounds to communicate with one another. It's crazy. So Green Jedi Monkey. Should I feed to my buffalo beetles? I've been offering apple and carrot, but they don't seem interested. In my experience, and I've kept and bred buffalo beetles. I don't have any now, but I've kept and bred them. In my experience, if they are in need of moisture or food, they will go after those. If they are not interested, unless there's something really wrong with them, they probably just don't need it. They probably have had enough food and hydration and don't really need it. Unless you find that they're quite lethargic or something like that, in which case you might need to look into why that might be. something like temperature or something. But I would say I wouldn't worry too much. Just decrease the amount you feed them, maybe uh, for a little while. And if they're not interested, or just wait a couple of days before feeding them, and then see how they do. They seem to be pretty voracious when they need to be. So Becca Nichols, you have water beetles, having them in a bug catcher with regular water and rocks. I only have two of them in there. What do I feed them? I have to feed them, have them to feed my two tree frogs and three toads. I would say with the water beetles, maybe you should just keep them rather than feed them to your amphibians. But you can feed them fish food pellets. They will eat that. They will eat bloodworms, frozen bloodworms. Since you only have a few, it might not be worth it to get bloodworms unless you're using them to feed something else. But if you have fish food pellets, like the sinking pellets, they will eat those really well. That's one of the main food sources I offer mine. So semi-feral Jill, get spiny orb weavers here in Michigan. The ones I have seen look like poop stuck to an ant on top and zebra stripes underneath. Yeah, Kimberly Kitty, I agree. There's a lot of cool things about AI, but the fact that we can't tell what's real or not, it is kind of scary. Totally agree about that. So theropod hunter, if they ever bring them into the hobby, I would absolutely love that colony of Umbonia crassicornis, thorn beetles. Interesting. I'll have to check that out. I don't think I've ever seen photos of that genus or that species. Ah, Becca, I see what you're saying. Taking care of the water beetles to breed to make more for your toads and tree frogs. I see what you're saying. So yeah, definitely the fish food will work, but I would say that breeding water beetles is probably not very um, practical because the larvae are aquatic and are going to need some more specialized care than uh, the adults in some ways, especially since when they pupate, they need to go on land in order to pupate. So my suggestion would be, if you want to breed a beetle to feed to your frogs and toads, breed something like the mealworm beetle or the superworm beetle. Those can work pretty well, especially the mealworms for toads and frogs. They wouldn't be the only food you'd want to feed them, but they could be a food item that you offer them, and they would be vastly more productive than trying to breed the water beetles. Easier, cheaper food, so much easier. Okay, like Crystal's mentioning, she got some mealworms she's going to let become beetles, and once you've done that, they're super easy to breed. And green Jedi monkey, being a very small colony, that'll make a difference too. They may have well eaten some of the food you put in there, and you didn't even notice because their colony is small. But once it gets a little bigger, then you'll start to them uh, see them eating that. Anyone using firebrats as feeders? I've been wanting to work with firebrats or some kind of silverfish or something like that as a feeder for a long time. I've read about people doing it. I haven't done it, but I would be interested in trying it. I think there's a lot of small creatures that could benefit from those. I know that some gecko breeders in Europe use firebrats as a food for some of their small, like spherodactylus geckos and things like that. All right, Becca, sounds like a good plan. Does Wally work with firebrats? I didn't know that. I must have missed that. That's really cool. I know he works with a lot of his own feeders. I know he does mealworms and uh, superworms, and I think he does superworms. He does dubia and he does peanut beetles and various things. That is actually pretty cool that he does firebrats. Would love to hear more about that. So Gyotaro, 3 new species of vinegaroons were discovered. Cool. Where? Because I would love to know more about that. Are these vinegaroons in the U.S.? They split the one species of vinegaroon in the U.S. into 3 not too long ago. Are they splitting it again? Splitting it further? Or is this somewhere else outside the US? I'd love to find out more about that. The species I have is Mestigoproctus tohono, one of the Arizona species, and Giganteus is the one out in Florida. And then I think there's another species that occurs in a limited part of not Texas, a limited part of Arizona, but also parts of Texas and New Mexico and stuff like that. But I could be wrong about that, but something like that. You know, it's about time I measured Ruby here. She's coming close to 4 feet. I don't think she's quite there yet, but she's not far away. She's a lot closer to 4 feet than she is to 3. She's getting big. Imperial tortoise beetles. I'll have to check that out. I was really impressed by the tortoise beetles that I saw in Arizona last time we were out there. Very cool little creatures. The fact that they change color so quickly, the fact that they mimic bird poop so well was really cool. Oh, okay, Yota, they're in Mexico. Cool. If you can link it, that would be fantastic. Uh-oh. There. You should be able to link it now, Yotaro. I think I needed to just change your status so that you could do that. See if it works. Looks like we're getting close to the end of our time here. That actually went fairly quickly once things picked up. So we've got about 3 more minutes. If you haven't hit the like button, go ahead and hit it. Mastigal practice. I wonder how you say that. Xetame. I don't want to mess it up, but cool. That's neat that they discovered some new ones. In fact, I think it would be cool if we could send pics of our pets. You know, that's not a bad idea. We could do some videos like that where people could put pics of their own pets or share them somewhere. That'd be cool. So the let's see, the tortoise beetles, if they would be communal, that'd be something, wouldn't it? Oh, thank you, Frank the Tank. You put the article to the Vinegaroons. Excellent. All right. Well, it is about time to wrap up. Thank you, everybody, for joining. I appreciate it. And be sure to tune in next week. We're going to have, it's actually going to be on a different day, though. I need to let you know about that. A different day it's going to be on Monday next week, the day before Halloween, because that's the day when Jessica was available. So we will be doing our live stream next week on Monday. So keep that in mind. I will put, I'll post that to that effect out there so people know that. And look forward to learning more about the Portland Insectarium and hopefully meeting some of the inhabitants up close and personal of the Portland Insectarium, along with getting to chat with Jessica. So everybody keep that in mind. Probably by Saturday, I will post the link to the video itself so that you will be able to, opt in for notifications, that kind of thing. So keep your eye open for that. On Friday or Saturday, I'll post that. Thank you so much, everyone. I would love to see you in the next one. And yeah, it'll almost be a reunion because Kimberly, Jessica, and I were together along with several other people at the Sky Island Adventures at the end of July. So if you're there, Kimberly, it'll be kind of be like a reunion. That'll be pretty cool. Oh, is that when Richard is doing his giveaway? Hopefully it's not the same time. I really hope it's not, because that would be sad if we're doing them at the same time. All right. And of course, if you aren't able to catch it live, then please catch the replay. It should be cool either way. All right, everyone. Thanks for joining in. Good to see you, and take care.